Hola, bienvenidos a todos. Welcome to BilingLutes, our next episode of our segment.
Bienvenidos. Thanks for joining us again. Today we're really excited to welcome a PLU alum, Xochilt Peña, and a current student, Luis Reyes, about whom you'll learn much more in just a bit. I'll start by presenting Xochilt Peña, who is a former Latinxs Unidxs president and who is joining us today. Thank you so much, Xochilt, from Virginia Beach, Virginia. So she's a few hours ahead and really far away, and we're really grateful for her presence. And we'd love for you to hear from her own voice. So, Xochilt, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi there. So yeah, my name is Xochilt Peña. I graduated from PLU in 2013 with the Hispanic Studies major. I spent a few years in Tacoma, and then I ended up moving to San Diego, California for a few years, and now I'm in Virginia Beach, Virginia. So that's what I'm up to these days.
Bienvenida, Xochilt.
Yeah, we also have a current student, like Adela said, Luis Reyes. I've got to know Luis over the past couple of years, actually. So extra in the D Center, love the energy. But he's a current student who's going to be a junior, and he's a bio and environmental studies major. So, yeah, I'll pass it off to Luis. ¿Qué tal? What's up?
Yeah, gracias por la invitación para estar aquí. Estoy muy emocionado. Like I said, like Luke and Adela said, my name is Luis. My pronouns are he, him, his, or él, ellos. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here today with some lovely people.
Awesome, gracias. And I want to note that Luis is my advisee in environmental studies. Just putting in a plug for the program in case you're interested. You can ask him about it, or probably him. He can give you the insider's view. And today we're actually talking about a topic that intersects really nicely with the boundaries or the borders of college life and home life. The YouTube channel's broader topic this week is living out your values. And I think for both Luke and I, that really takes us back to kind of questions of what some of the fundamental but oftentimes hidden aspects of Latinx and Latin American cultural values are, and how we often become aware of them through very subtle interactions that we have. And one of the things that it reminds me specifically of is what it meant to kind of become aware of how different relationships to family can be between Mexico and the U.S., or in Mexico and the U.S. So I grew up in Mexico City, as I've said before, and I went to college in Mexico City. And at the time, it was very uncommon, or fairly uncommon, I should say, to leave home for college, because most colleges or big universities are in Mexico City, and so it doesn't necessarily make sense for you to spend money renting, and so most people just stay home. And so living at home was just natural for me, or a natural kind of part of college life. But then when I came to the States for my graduate studies, I realized how, I guess, the really big impact that leaving home for college has on the American psyche, on American identity, on just the experience and the relationship, or how you kind of experience family ties when you're in school. And so today we wanted to just start with that kind of sharing that broad anecdote. And we'll start with you, Xochilt, just kind of thinking a little bit about this question of family and the connection to family when you're moving into the college world. So what are your thoughts? ¿Cuál ha sido tu experiencia?
So and I'm so sorry, I have my dog who's having a tantrum right now.
No, we love dogs.
We love dogs.
Just, oh my goodness. But I graduated from high school in 2009, which was the year right after the collapse of the housing market. And so that was something that I felt really affected my family economically. So I had like this dream, kind of like in Real Women Have Curves, when America Ferrera's character goes off to college and she lives there and she's doing her thing. But that reality soon came crashing down, and it was we had to come to the decision that I was just going to have to be a commuter student. And kind of like how you said, there's like good local colleges in Mexico. I lived in Tacoma. So for me, it's like, okay, it's a 15-minute commute. It's not too bad. But I still kind of felt down because I really wanted like that full college experience. And so I actually didn't leave home until my study abroad, which was my sophomore or junior year of PLU.
And where did you go for study away?
I went to Oaxaca, Mexico. And that in itself was like a whole nother story that we can get into of how I even got on a plane away from my family.
Yeah, how did you navigate that? What was the conversations with family when you told them that you were going abroad?
Yeah, so I have always been a little bit of like a rebelde. And so I knew that I wanted to go to Oaxaca after Tamara, I believe her last name is
Azuela.
Azuela. She came to do a presentation in our class. And after the presentation, I was like, wow, I would really love the opportunity to go. But I knew that if I asked my parents, can I go visit? They would say, no, where's the money? How are we going to pay for it? So I went ahead with like, es mejor pedir perdón que permiso. It's like, ask for forgiveness than permission. So I applied for the program, got accepted. I applied for grants, locked that in. And then once I had everything set in stone, I had to sit down with my parents and I was like, les tengo que decir algo. I have this really great opportunity. I'm going to be going to Mexico for 3 months and it's all paid for. Like, you guys don't have to give me anything. Like, I'll work all summer if I need to, but whatever. And my dad was all for it. He was like, oh, está bien, you should go out and see how other people live. But my mom, that is where the problems came because she's like, tú no estás lista para irte. You're not ready to go. And I was like, everything's booked, so like I'm going.
There's no bye.
Back.
Yeah. But it got to the point where she really like did not want me to go. And she even called Tamara Williams. She called my professor and was like, estoy muy preocupada por Xochi. I don't think she's ready to be on her own. She's only 20, whatever. And Tamara had my back, thank God. She was like, do you know your daughter? Like, she's very responsible. Like, I think this is going to be a great experience for her. Like, you got to let her fly. Like, so that is how I did it. So that was really scary. I remember the day before I got on the plane to Oaxaca, I was just like so nervous because like I'm really doing this. Like I'm really leaving to go abroad for 3 months with my family, away from everything. But it was a wonderful experience and I don't regret it for 1 minute. It
really sounds amazing. I'm really impressed with your the kind of background planning you did. And just not letting no be a defining answer. I'm curious how that, I guess, was there somebody in your family that kind of modeled that for you, or was this you kind of breaking away from typical family behaviors?
I would say I've always been a little rebellious. Like I've always been very much a family girl. But I think there just comes a point in everyone's life where they have to make a decision for themselves. And I kind of took it upon myself to just be the first one to really break away because none of my cousins had done that. No one leaves the house till they're married. So I decided to just be the first one and have a go at it.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic.
That's awesome. Paving the way, yes.
Exactly.
What would you give advice to other students who, are in similar family dynamics and they're, struggling these two roles? They're like, they want to go abroad, but also maybe they have obligations to family and home life balance.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely something to think about. Every family is obviously different. Even though I had a role at home, I didn't have super young siblings to look after. It wasn't a huge role to be in. So for me, it wasn't that as big of a decision, but I guess it depends for each person. I would say just look to someone to talk to, even if it's just like a professor to give you a pep talk and say, hey, I think you can do this. You're an amazing student. And also just talk about how it's an academic opportunity, right? It's not like I'm just going on vacation for 3 months. I'm going there as an academic person. So
yeah. And speaking of that, Luis just came back from his study away experience, and I wonder if any of this conversation is kind of resonating with you, Luis, or if you had a very different experience in deciding to go.
Yeah. So I went to Scotland. I was at the University of Aberdeen for spring semester, last semester. But it was quite interesting being there just because of the whole COVID thing happening. But prior to that, so I'll tell you my whole timeline of the university there because it's kind of short if now I look at it. But the first day of classes was my birthday, so it's really interesting. So we had classes up until like February, but then there was a teacher strike. So teachers would take off like 3 days of the week, and then they would build up, and by like end of March or at the end of February, beginning of March, there were full week-long protests, and teachers wouldn't teach. So we just didn't have classes. And then following that, the whole COVID thing went on, so we moved on to remote online learning. And then eventually, like a week after that, they were just like, "Oh, we'll forget it. We're just gonna pass all first and second years." So it was that's really, I like had classes for like maybe a month at that. So it's quite interesting just to be in a new country, just really just experiencing, Scottish culture, just UK culture, and just engulfing myself with that. But it was interesting asking my mother about leaving just because I have been out on my own for a good amount of time, I would think, but not out of the country. Like I've been to Mexico to visit my grandma when I was 16, but like this is different. I feel like it's her school, so I feel like she understood it more. She was confused on why I chose Scotland and just like the location and stuff like that, but like it was supposed to help me in the long run. It kind of screwed me over at the end, but I still had a great time. Also, don't regret it at the end. But yeah, it was an interesting experience for sure. But I do recommend studying away for anybody who is interested in it, wherever it may be. Because I'm studying away again in J term.
Yes. So I wonder if like we're able to, rewind a little bit more back in time, like back to applying to college and, going to PLU. Like what did that process look like? Maybe if you are a commuter. I mean, I know you traveled a little bit, Luis, to get to PLU. So, leaving the household, those kind of dynamics, like what did that look like, and what did those conversations look like with family?
Yeah. So it was quite challenging, I would say, just because my family dynamic, I'm not kind of that close with my family. Like there's a lot of conflict within just me and my sisters, my mom. She's just a single parent, so it's just her, the older sisters and a younger brother. But out of like my whole immediate family, I was the first one to actually go somewhere for college. Like my older sister, she went to a college like just up the street from where we live. But so kind of first gen, kind of not, in both categories. But it was difficult because obviously applying for college is not just a walk in the ballpark. Like that's intense, especially if like no one, because I didn't have assistance from anybody. But luckily, one of my friends was also applying to PLU, so I could talk to her and her family about kind of just what they're doing and kind of just model that and mold it to my situation, my circumstances. But it was very difficult at times because, like I said, no one went to college, so I couldn't really look to anyone in my immediate family. But I did talk to a couple friends who were already in college, and they did make the process a lot easier. I constantly called PLU just because for me, just immediate conversation really solidifies like any hardships or troubles I may have. So PLU really made it easy just to communicate and figure out any problems I did have and make it easy. Financial aid was difficult. It still is difficult though. I'm still learning every day. But yeah, definitely it was a change of pace because jumping just straight from high school to college and not having any guidance is hard for anybody, I would say, regardless of just any circumstances they've dealt with. But I mean, I figured it out. I'm here. I'm thriving, I would think. I'm just having a great time at PLU. Met some amazing people, done some amazing things, and only halfway done. So we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I really want to kind of celebrate what you said at the end, Luis, about like it's hard, but I did it, and here I am. And I feel like once you get into college or graduate studies or a job that you really want, it's hard. It's easy to forget to kind of then move on to the newest like lesson or the newest culture that you have to adapt to, and forget that you got yourself there and that you have those strengths and those insights that allow you to figure a difficult system out. And so I appreciate that you're going back and acknowledging that, and it's important to hold on to those accomplishments because things get harder in different ways down the line. And so sometimes, at least I know that sometimes I forget, oh no, but I already did that other thing, so I guess I can do this too. Kind of remembering those accomplishments. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I think it's kind of important to just give yourself the accomplishment, the satisfaction of, hey, I did something, something maybe no one in my family does. Just because that small, just because you accomplish something doesn't mean it's just nothing, Maybe you spend so much time and effort into something that you deserve to give yourself a round of applause. Like, hey, I kind of just did this all by myself, or maybe just needed the assistance by someone else, but I still got the process all figured out. And, just, I don't know, just always think about your accomplishments constantly, because there's plenty, Yeah. And whenever you feel kind of down in the gutters, or just kind of like, oh, maybe I can't accomplish this, maybe I'm not good enough to do this, just think about the constant things you have done already, and just strive for greatness.
Yeah. Xochilt, do you you started sharing about your study away experience by going to the 2009 context, which was really hard, I'm sure, to kind of accept that you weren't going to live in college and then kind of adapt to being a commuter instead. And so I wonder, what your thoughts are in terms of, I guess partly I'm thinking of this because you're in Virginia Beach now. And so you've clearly been around and kind of found a way not only to go to Oaxaca, but now you're living on the other side of the country. And so I'm curious kind of what has shaped that curiosity to go elsewhere, or kind of where, I know that in kind of preparing for today, you brought up something important, like the kind of adoptive families that we find as we make our way through college and through life. And so I'm just curious about what that experience of moving around has been like for you.
Yeah, so I always imagined myself leaving home. I unfortunately grew up in a very chaotic house, to be honest with you. It wasn't the healthiest of environments for me to be in. And actually, before I applied to PLU, I applied to WazU, Washington State University, which is on the other side of the state. Because in my mind, I was like, I just want to get away. I want to be free. I want to just, go out on my own for a bit. I think I'm ready. And that didn't work out. So I ended up at PLU. And then I think just wanting to be free, and then finally just making the decision that if I don't do this now, then I won't ever do it.
Yeah.
And then even after Oaxaca, I applied to be an RA on campus because, again, I couldn't afford the room and board, but if I applied for that job, it would be paid for. So, so I applied for the position and I got accepted. So then I came back from Oaxaca. I just sit my parents down again, and I was like, I got the job and I get to live on campus. And it's funny because my dad was fine with me going abroad, right? Going abroad and meeting different people of different lives. But when I told him I was going to live on campus, he had a fit about it because he was like, you have a home right here. Like, why are you going to go spend all this money 15 minutes away? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, because I know what freedom feels like now. And I don't ever want to have to like relinquish that, right? Like, I think that's a big thing with, especially Latinx women. I feel like we're so protected in our communities and our parents. And with the boys, it's not as much. I guess it depends on each family. But for girls especially, it's like, you know, tú te quedas aquí until we tell you that you're ready. And so one thing that I definitely think is important for the girls to know is that they can all go out and live out their dream, whatever that may be for them, whether it's going to college or if they want to, you know, maybe just move to a different state and just try it out, or even a different city. Maybe it doesn't have to be as extreme as leaving to another state, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. That was kind of echoed a little bit in my family. It's a little bit of joke. It's like, you can't date until you're married.
What?
But that's very true about like the protectiveness of like the our women in our family, and like wanting to have that close bond as well. So, yeah. For me, they were just like, yeah, go whatever, go ahead.
Same for my brother. My brother was like escorted out of the house with, you know, applause or whatever. Not to say that my parents weren't supportive. They were super excited that I was leaving. I was also in a very, everything you said resonates a lot with my experience, because it was also a very chaotic home. There were also reasons for me to leave. At the same time, my parents were like, of course, you know, go get it. But when you leave, you actually leave, they're like having a meltdown. And it really makes leaving hard, even like leaving in the psychological sense. Like you can be wherever in PLU or in my case, I was in New York City, but you're home because there's like these forces that are not necessarily letting you go. So I really appreciate how Xochilt, you've underscored like, go for it, right? Like leave. You can leave even if the kind of structures around you are saying no, 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 or you can, but not the way he can. You have to really just press the accelerator and kind of go. And then things kind of sort out, and people come to accept that, you know, parents come to accept. I mean, ultimately, as you were both saying, in terms of study away, like it's academic. You're learning. You're not leaving to like, I don't know, join a rogue group of people who are walking through the country, I don't know, across the country or whatever. But so, yeah, really powerful kind of example.
I think that kind of translates well into what we're asking some of our guests today about. What would you give advice to like students coming to college for the first time, or who are maybe leaving their family structures for the first time? And what is that? Yeah, what advice or bits of information would you share? Yeah, I'll pass it to Luis. Yeah.
Sweet. So I would say definitely with COVID, it would be a new kind of experience for everybody. Just because stuff would be probably a lot more remote or online or virtual. So I would say be like actively present, like be present, but actively present, just because it's so easy just to fall into a slump of not wanting to do something because online, not wanting to do it because there's not a teacher there or a professor or just someone who can guide you. But like in college, you are even if you do, especially for a lot of us, we do leave or just like go somewhere a lot farther than home. So you're already on your own. You're already starting your, I guess, adult life. So I guess a good kind of just trait and quality to start manifesting and just working on is just like independence and just responsibility on top of whatever you may want to do. And then I would also just say, don't be like, you're never too old to have fun. So don't think you're like too cool to be doing something. Don't be like, you're like, oh, I'm not going to join this club. I'm not going to do this activity. I'm not going to play this game just because I might look dumb against my peers or whatever. Just because like for my first, for NSO weekend, now called Blue Guide, my immediate group, I had some of my best friends I still know. My roommate I had last semester, kind of just all from this writing 101 class that I had with Angie Hambrick. But I just remember vividly, like in my head, we were in a circle and we just all like doing handshakes. And like my roommate, her name was Anita, her name is Anita, but she did a handshake and that kind of just stuck. And like, just that simple handshake was like, I was like, that's kind of cool. I said, hold up, what's your name? And it's literally just started like rolling from that. And then like, I need to show many people she knew. I showed any other people we knew, and kind of just all kind of formed like a nice little community. And that was kind of like within the first hour of me coming to POU, because I knew one person at POU. It was like my friend I was telling you about earlier that we kind of did the application together. But just be open to anyone and anything, just because you don't know where opportunity lies and where kind of just the adventure of life lies. Yeah.
Awesome. Love it. Snaps. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
What about you, Xochilt?
So I would say that to remember that you're probably not the only one going through what you're going through. So for example, whether that's being a first generation college student, first generation American, like maybe somebody who came from a not so happy home, there's always at least somebody in your community who is also going through what you've been through. It can resonate a little bit. And I think earlier we kind of mentioned the adoptive families. So in 2009, when I got to PLU, there was actually no like Latinx club at all. Like I remember walking through the club fair and, you know, I saw the Black Student Union, I saw the Asian Pacific Islanders, you know, club, and all unicycle club, like just everything under the sun except for a Latinx club. And I can remember me and Isa, we, you know, went to the clubhouse and we asked, you know, did we miss something? Like maybe like we just didn't see them. And there hadn't been one in 8 years. So then we decided to just kind of start it. And one of the best decisions I think that we made, because we really did build like a little family on campus in that group. And there's still people that I talk to this day. One of them was actually my bridesmaid at my wedding. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And thank you for reviving the group. It's such an important part of students' experience at PLU. So that's I think an important note on leadership and kind of seeing, you know, an opportunity and taking it up, right? Going with it. So thanks.
Yeah. So as we head into the last little bit, Adela, do you want to transition us into our last segment?
Sure, absolutely. So our last segment is always La Palabra del Día, which is when we ask you to share a word or a phrase that for you holds kind of special meaning, either because it's really hard to translate for people who aren't part of your culture, because or the opposite, that's a word in English that kind of just seems inapplicable or hard to apply to a cultural experience within your Latinx family. I mean, there can be an intellectual reason why you find it interesting, whatever. And so we're going to start with Xochilt and then move on to Luis. So Xochilt, what would you like to share with our audience?
So I was thinking about this, and I originally had a different word for my Spanish one, but I think the one word that always comes to mind that can never be perfectly translated is Dio guarde. So like anytime something shocking happens, something scandalous, it's like, Dio guarde, pero tú viste eso. And it's like not translatable. And then from English to Spanish, I don't know, maybe I just don't know the word, but like when talking about like creating boundaries with people, it's like, I'm going to draw a line in the sand. And like that term, I think I tried to Google it the other day, and they're like, dibujar una línea en arena. I was like, that does not make sense.
No, I've talked about speaking out your values. That does talk about like the importance of how boundaries matter differently in American culture than they do in Latin American cultures. That's awesome. I hadn't thought about that. How about you, Luis?
So I kind of just went back to my roots, and something that my mom told me a lot whenever I like doing quehaceres or lavando los trastes or just doing things. El huevón trabaja doble. So
Yes.
It's straight translation. The lazy works double. So if you just do a sloppy job the first time, if you're not like passionate about what you're doing, if you're annoyed, agitated, or like anything, you just focus on your emotions rather than your worth ethic. You kind of produce something that's lesser of quality. So just, I think it's also important for a lot of first years, just when you do something, do it right the first time. You don't want to repeat an assignment. You don't want to repeat a test. You don't want to redo something if you don't have to do it. So just, everyone trabaja doble.
Yeah, yeah. Very important advice.
Well, thank you so much, Luis and Xochilt, for joining us today. We had wonderful conversation, and I'm sharing some knowledge about our various value systems that come across our diaspora of the Latinidad. So it's great to hear from you too. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, both, and good luck, Xochilt, with everything. Keep in touch. We'll be in touch, and Luis, we'll see you very soon.
Yeah.
No, let's not cut the summer short. We'll see you eventually.
Okay.
Yeah. See you when I see you.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Thank you. Gracias. Hasta la próxima.
Gracias.
Okay.
Ciao.
Adiós. Hasta luego.
Bye.